Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at this Westinghouse OV-25. So this fixture I have received again with those two Pemco fixtures, so it's a fairly recent addition to the collection. But now we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at this fixture because it is one of the coolest fixtures that I have. Certainly pretty historically significant, given that it is the first Cobra head. So the Westinghouse OV-25 first came out in, I believe, 1955. It was the remote ballast version, which uses the same door and lens as this fixture, a different top housing, which allowed you to run a 400-watt mercury vapor lamp in essentially the same way as a clamshell, in just a slightly different appearance, and I think those are just mainly intended to make a more modern appearing light fixture that still ran and replaced the old clamshells without any need for any other components. And then in 1957, Westinghouse introduced the OV-25 with the built-in ballast, which is basically the same as the fixture that we see in front of us. However, the build is a little different, the slip fitter mainly, but from the outside it is virtually impossible to tell the difference between the different versions of the OV-25. There were some different glasses available, but really they all look just about the same. Now, I always really liked Westinghouse fixtures. I think they were my favorites, even over General Electric. Well, now I've been introduced to Pemco fixtures, in particular that 400-watt one, and it's not holding up as well, but I do still really like the Westinghouse fixtures, and in particular this one, because this is the first Cobra head. This is what created the design that has become very popular, and I guess you could call all of the other fixtures that are Cobra heads copycats in a way of this fixture, because before this came out, everyone was making clamshells or gumballs or radio waves, things like that, and quite quickly after this came out, all sorts of different Cobra heads became available. So this fixture is already really cool, but there's one thing to make it even cooler, and that is that I believe I have the Google Street View link or location for this exact fixture. This was given to me by the person that I bought this from. Now, I can't be 100% certain that this is in fact that fixture, but even if it isn't, it's still a really nice photograph of a very nice fixture, and I can't really see why this wouldn't be. It does look very similar, some different dirt spots on parts that match up. Of course, there's no way to be completely certain, but it is really cool. So there are a lot of different iterations of the Westinghouse OV-25. The one on the right is of course the earliest version, and the one on the left is the third generation, and that particular fixture happens to be from 1973, making it about 13 or so years newer than the other one that we're taking a look at today. But since they're both OV-25s, we might as well take a quick look and see the similarities between them and the differences. So the OV-25, as we've seen here, is a very nice sleek fixture. There's the other one. They have the same style. They look very similar. They're both very long, sleek fixtures, and they both use just about the same glassware. It's halophane on both, and the pattern on the glasses are, I think, identical. The photocell socket is a difference, however. This one has the photocell above the glass, and this one would have had the photocell socket right about there. This is a third generation, so the photocell socket is pretty far back, and on the second generation, the photocell socket would be about there, and early ones would have the photocell socket right above that reflector, but those are pretty rare, and I don't have one to show you, so You just have to take my word for it, and if you guys look online, you'll be able to see those versions. I just can't show them here in this video. Another version, or the biggest difference, of course, is the fact that this one has 2 doors. And you see the split right there in the middle of the screen. This one has 1 door that takes the entire length of the fixture, and it's a little bit thicker. This fixture kind of narrows from here to here, whereas this fixture is completely flat. So this back portion here with the slip fitter is a lot narrower on the earlier version, and that's the biggest difference in the design of these. And I actually think the older version looks a lot nicer. Can't exactly say why, but I do really like this flat bottom appearance, and that has given these fixtures the nickname flat bottom OV-25s, because they really are when you compare them to the newer versions. There's also a 4th generation OV-25, which is really weird, and it kind of cuts off the back part of the fixture, and this fixture becomes more chunky, and it has exposed slip fitter. I don't have one of those. I don't particularly care for them, but they are out there, and there's people that do like those fixtures, so if you have one of those, you do know what I am talking about. With the floating camera here, we'll take a look at the bottoms of the fixtures. And yeah, these are very different. The design is, of course, very similar. Let's start by taking a look at the front. This uses the sort of typical Westinghouse Cooper style latch. This one uses a very different latch, which we'll take a look at. This one has the name embossed on the front. Glass is different, but it's the same pattern. Polythene glass on both. This is the door, the single door that's very wide here. This is a very narrow door with a ribbed bottom. Those 2 doors and the hinge in the middle. And this one's completely flat, but it does have a very nice Westinghouse logo. And the casting is pretty poor quality. You can see all sorts of cracks in the mold and the paint, and it's just kind of really sad looking. This one is perfectly smooth. So with that, I'm done comparing the 2 fixtures, and we'll take a closer look at the older one. So now we've got the floating camera here, we can take a look at the top here. We'll take a look at basically the very plain top housing, which is typical of all Cobras. It's very rare that you find something, or a fixture with something of interest up here. It does have remnant of the birds that were, of course, perching themselves on these fixtures, but what we can take a look at here is the photocell, and this is not original to the fixture. This makes no sense on the fixture. This is a 480 volt photocell. This is not a 480 volt fixture, but I just like the way that this photocell looks, and I think it it just looks really nice on this fixture. So that's why I have it on here. Pull it off, just twist it, it comes undone. Here's the information. And the photocell socket, which is wonderful, high quality. You loosen those 2 screws, you can stick a screwdriver in here and twist this little black piece on the inside to, of course, point north. Your little eye on the front of the photocell is supposed to point north. And yeah, it's pretty generic photocell. I'm not going to be able to use this. Maybe I'll figure out, take that apart, turn it into a shorting cap, but for now it's just kind of on there for aesthetic purposes, and it does make this light look quite nice. But everything else here is completely smooth. This is the same upper housing as OV-50. OV-50 would have a big hole here for the fin, but it is the same casting. So now I'll flip this over and we'll take a look at the underside of the fixture. So here's the bottom of the fixture. It's a very nice but kind of funky design. I do like that they have the tapered door here that continues here, though I know there are some people that probably don't like the way that this fixture looks, but I think it's pretty much perfect. It does have some quality issues, but we'll get to that, and I've been able to remedy them somewhat. The glass is pretty much crystal clear, as is the glass on the newer one. There's really not that much to see here, although it does have a very unique design. So we'll have to take this thing, open it up, because there's a lot more to see on the inside. Let's get started opening this up. These are the twist screws. You have to pull them out. These are not the original screws, but whatever. I don't know if I'll be able to, there, get that open. And that comes out. This would of course hang here if it was sitting up on the pole, but it's not, so there's nothing to keep that up. This is a piece of stamped aluminum that forms a door. It's pretty questionable quality. Thankfully mine is in pretty good condition. It's dirty, but it's in good condition. Clean it up a little bit, but on the inside it's like really nice. Still shiny and whatnot, but these screws, which are, these are the original pins, but these would have had originally a piece of wire, and that wire was bent, and it was basically impossible to open this fixture up to access anything on the inside. So what I've done is I've put some very small M2 screws in here, and it's not a perfect fit, but these allow me to access the this portion of the fixture, close it up and open it up. It's a lot easier, it's a lot faster, and it's less stressful. So it's not completely original, but it makes using this fixture a lot more enjoyable. Now the slip fitter is pretty typical Westinghouse. It has 2 bolts here, and the big cast stamp strips. These would of course hold your pole on. There's an adapter you can put in for 1 1/4 inch, but the earlier versions of OV-25, and this is how you can tell, would have had a piece of cast metal, and I don't have an example right now what that looks like, but it is on my OV-50, and if you guys take a look at that video, you can see that that fixture up in use, or when I'm taking a look at that fixture, you can see what those straps sort of look like. They're basically the same quality. They're a little bit nicer, but they do the same thing. These aren't really bad either. The bolts are different. The older ones would have had nicer bolts, and these are all corroded and whatnot, but it's just kind of how these things are. Now, moving on up, the terminal block, which has the Westinghouse name on it, or the little logo, and this is kind of complicated. I don't quite understand all of the terminology that they have on the terminal block here, but I do know how to wire this up. So it's not an issue, it's just the way that's molded doesn't really make sense. And you have this bar here that's piece of steel. Mine's pretty kind of really corroded. It's kind of normal. These things aren't really the best. I've seen some versions that are a little bit nicer. They're pretty much rust free. The chances of finding another one of these that's even better condition is kind of asking a lot. Now it's got this strap here, and I don't know if this is like not original or not, but would have held a capacitor at some point, or if you had a capacitor version. This does not have a capacitor, so there's nothing here, but this is where your capacitor would go if you had one. The little latch or a hinge here, same thing as OV-25 EV, but it's a really nice design. I think it's one of the best hinges I've found. There's really no way of breaking this, unlike that, or even the one on the Penco, or really anything. This is one of my favorite designs for a streetlight latch or a hinge system because it's very robust. The metal strips here, these do not typically come off of the fixture. You can remove these 2 screws and remove them, but I'm not going to do that. These really serve only one purpose, and that is to close up the gap here, because this is not a perfect match for this. If they would have extended this door, made it wider, they wouldn't have needed that, but I guess they just didn't want to put in the money to make a custom mold when they already had this door made for 2 years. Now this one has some shine left, and I wonder if these would have been all shiny like chrome, like this, when this was brand new, and if so, that would be a really interesting thing to look at, because this has the original paint. It's kind of it's a hammered silver, and then this might have been like really shiny, but I don't really know. None of these are going to be in a perfect condition, so they all kind of look like this. So that's everything to look at in this section. Is really only access this when you're taking the fixture, you're mounting it, or you're putting it back, taking it down. So once it's in place, there's no reason to access this portion. Let's do the exciting part, which is opening the front door here, and so we can see the ballast and the lamp assembly. So to get this going, I'll push back on the latch, which is reminiscent of AE, kind of, sort of. It's just a latch that's pretty standard design. I'll pull it open, and then now there's a little piece of metal here that you have to push back that allows you to push the fixture forward if it wants to go. And it's, there we go, it's a little stiff, but we got there. So now let's take a look at the refractor door. So here is the refractor door taken off. It's got the glass, and it's gonna be a lot easier to look at this without the glass. So let's take this off. It's just a turn a little latch, which is basically the same as every single street light, and that pops out. So now we can take a look at the glass by itself, and then we'll look at the door afterwards. The glass here is just about as good as it gets. It's a very nice clean mold. It's made with care. This is a very nice, expensive, high pressure molded piece of glass from Hall of Fame. It's got some dirt on it. I've tried to wash this already, but I really just need to take some time and go through this real thoroughly, because it will look a lot nicer once it's done. And the front of the glass has this little target on the front, which is something to do with aiming the fixture. I don't know where it's used, or really don't know how to use it. There's probably some information online of how to use this, but I haven't seen it. So if someone does know, post a link in the description or the comments, because I'd like to see exactly how you use this. Now this fixture has the Westinghouse logo right there in the center of the lens, and mine is kind of messed up. It's kind of bubbly, so I don't know what happened here, but the glass has some imperfections right there in the logo and really nowhere else, so not sure what caused that, but normally they're not like that. So the embossing on the side, Hall of Fame, the patents, and on the other side it has Westinghouse style number and some other stuff on it. Doesn't have house side or street side marked. So, yeah, it looks like it's pretty plain. But this is a really nice, high quality piece of glass. Take a look at the version of the OV-25 here. The other one is just about the same. It's only difference is the logo has moved to a different location. Here is the door, and sorry for the shaky camera, but this is just kind of how we're doing it. The door is a really nice piece. It's made really well. It's nice and smooth. Unlike later Westinghouse stuff, as I said before, the latch has a little hook on it, which you use just like any other streetlight latch. It's got a piece of metal here, which is loose. It's kind of just pressed into place. It's got that little piece right there that's holding it in, but it works. This is really the only piece. Kind of scary. This is the one piece holding the streetlight lens in. Earlier versions had a cast tab, but I guess that was too expensive, and they switched over to this sometime in the early 60s. And it's got a lot of rib detail here made to structurally reinforce the rim. Now, I don't understand why this even needs it. There's no reason why this should be flexing, but it is a nice little detail that does make it a little bit stronger. And the drip hole is placed right there. This is the latch. This is kind of spring-loaded, so it kind of clicks into place, but this one's kind of worn out. It's loose, and it's not quite as nice as the other ones. Westinghouse OV-25 over there has the same latch, but it's stuck and it won't turn, so yeah, these things are either really loose or really tight. But that's not too bad. This fixture needs some cleaning, but I think overall this is in really nice condition, considering I've basically done nothing to this. I gave it a light wipe down, but for how old this fixture is, it's in pretty good shape. Here's a closer look at the hinge here, which is really high quality. It's got the huge rivets in there, which shouldn't be coming out anytime soon, but if they do, you can just re-rivet it, or even use some bolts. So yeah, it does have the original paint on the side of the fixture. Look at that, it's just like wonderful, almost like a marbly type thing. So that's the door. And now let's take a look at the rest of the fixture. So now we have the ballast door, or the other door removed, which is technically the ballast door. We have access to the ballast. But before we look at that, we should probably look at this. And this is what that door, refractor door, holds onto. And this is that little latch that you have to push to remove your lens door. This is the piece of metal kind of right in the middle. Your capacitor will be mounted right underneath this, if it had one. And it has some sort of stamp. Now, I don't know if this is useful. I really wish it was more clear. I don't know what this means, if this is like a date or some sort of like quality control thing, but it's there. Maybe it was whoever was making this metal piece, but I don't really know. So if you guys know, that'd be great help, but it doesn't seem very likely that any information is going to come up on that. The two triangle pieces here, which are really thin and moving around. The screws loose on that one though. So that needs to get tightened up. And the fixture has these little bulges here, and they kept this design even though it doesn't get used. This is just to kind of keep this going. This is to keep the seal, because if they were to keep this going, it would just get too thin. My Cooper OVL has that same part on it, and then also acts as something for the lens door to rest on. Now the part that we're all looking forward to here is the ballast, which is the original 400 watt Mercury vapor ballast, and this happens to be my first red varnished ballast. The varnish is coming off, which is to be expected of something this old. It is original, I believe. If not, it's of the correct period, but it should run fine. I haven't tested it yet, but there's nothing really that can go wrong on these. There's no capacitor that could short out or that would cause the ballast to draw a different amount of current. So the ballast, let's just get a couple more photographs. Yeah, it's very simple, and here the wiring is also very simple. The terminal, or the socket here is the next part of focus. It has a very nice piece of metal as a bracket, and you have these replacement screws that I put in here. I don't like them very much, but these are the screws that I put in, and they work all right. Your socket has 2 positions. This is right now the more forward. You can just barely see there's a hole if you want to move the socket about 1/2 inch backwards. I don't know how much that will change the light distribution, but they did talk about that on their advertisement. So yeah, there's just a little piece of metal back there that the ballast holds on to. The socket is very high quality, a piece of porcelain. There would have been a sticker on that, but that's come off. And now the reflector. It's foggy. I think people always say it's because of these gray gaskets, and I don't think it is, but this gasket is pretty much wrecked. You can hear that. That should not be rock solid, but it is. There's not really anything wrong with it, so I won't be replacing this gasket. It's perfectly fine. This fixture won't be going outdoors, so there's no reason to worry about water, but kind of a piece of crap, really. It's the orange gasket on my Pemco, as you saw, is perfectly intact, and that's of about the same age, if not a little bit older, but oh well. The reflector is the same reflector that was always used in OV-25, and when you want to get it out, there's just a little tab here that you press in, and the gasket's coming caught on the reflectors, or the socket support, but it does come out. So yeah, it's right there. This gets caught right here. This is kind of a bad design, but I don't think they really anticipated you taking these reflectors out, so I guess it's not really that big of a deal. The reflector, typical standard reflector. The piece is rated on, and there's nothing wrong with it. Really, just very simple. Now, with that removed, we can see the inside of the housing, which is pretty clean. This is the piece that the door latches onto, and so does the reflector. And the one other thing that we can see back down here is the photocell socket. It's got 2 screws that go right through the housing and secure it in place. Really, this fixture is so simple on the inside. I do really like simplicity, and this is no exception, so I do really like that. We can get another view of the ballast, and the varnish is just crumbling off. I think that I could refinish it, but I don't know if I completely want to. It's not going to see much use, so I don't really see purpose of spending the money and refinishing it. And also, part of the reason I don't like to refinish my fixtures is because I like to leave them in the as-found condition, and I'm worried that when I refinish them, I'm not going to like them. So I just kind of leave them as is, and there's nothing wrong with that. So with all of that, we've seen everything that this fixture has to offer, and the only thing left to do is to turn it on. So essentially, we want to see this turned on. It's kind of pointless to turn it on if you don't have a light bulb. So I've got this here. This is a very hammered Westinghouse lifeguard from, I think, the 80s. Clear mercury. I got this out of my other 25, and I mean, it works. I tested it already on my fixture, and it does turn on, although it's not quite as bright, of course, and it's going to be a little bit more green, which I think is going to be perfect for this fixture. So let's go ahead and turn this, or put this inside of the fixture. Okay, that's in. Now I've got the socket in the forward position, and yeah, that's just about perfect. It could be a little bit back. I don't think this isn't quite all the way, but I could move this back a little bit, but yeah, that bulb, either way, is just about perfectly in there. So now I'm going to go ahead, situate that there, and put the refractor door on. So this proves to be a challenge almost every single time. So let's see how badly I struggle with this. that wasn't too bad. Everything's on there. Alright, let's close this door up. Jesus, scary, but got it on. Alright, so this is a 240 volt fixture. It wires up a little bit differently, as you can see. Now, we all know how 120 volt fixtures wire up. There's just a hot and a neutral, and it plugs in, and it's really just like any other fixture. However, this one being 240 volt, it requires 2 extension cords that go to 2 sides of the circuit breaker. Now, this is not exactly convenient. It certainly takes a lot longer to set up, and you have to plug in 2 things instead of 1, and they're far apart from each other. But the reason I'm not swapping out the ballast is because this has the original Westinghouse ballast, and I don't want to take that out because removing that really diminishes the fixture's value, and then you just don't get the sense of what the fixture was like back when it was made. And these fixtures are really rare to find with their original components, so I'm opting to do this. And really, I'm only going to be powering it up for the video and maybe a couple other times, so it doesn't really matter. So the way that I've got this wired up here is, excuse this, but I've got my cord here, which is coming in, and see it runs out the room. This is connected with the black to this terminal and the white to this terminal. And I've got my second extension cord, which is just right here, which turns in the black goes here and the white goes here, so both whites go here, and then these are the 2 blacks, and that's how you wire it up. This is absolutely not how you should be doing this. I'm simply doing this because I don't have a better way to do it, and for now it works. I've already tried this and it's fine, so it's fine for this application where I'm turning it on only for a few minutes just to record it in a controlled environment. But this should not be left like this if it was going to be installed for a very long amount of time without constant supervision. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this thing fired up. Alright, so now let's see how long it takes to get this thing on. So first I have to get it on these hooks on the back, which are not the right size, and I don't know why it's like this. There we go. That one twists on easy. This one isn't quite as fun. That's on. And then you just have to twist this one as much as it will go, though it doesn't really want to go on. I mean, that's technically closed, although it's not very secure. Doesn't really need to be, though. Alright, so I've got the fixture here. It's already wired up. I've got one of my lines plugged in, and now I've got the shorting cap on, and I'm going to plug in the second plug. So we're going to go ahead and watch this fixture turn on in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so here's the fixture. Let's get a closer look at this glass. That is really nice, and it's probably not all the way warmed up yet, but it is very bright. You can see a slight flicker. That is just a really, really pretty piece of glass, and that color of that clear mercury is just perfect. Alright, so that's the fixture warming up. I'm going to go ahead and unplug one of the sources and we can watch it turn off. In 3, 2, 1. Nice cool down there. So that's it for this video. I hope everyone enjoyed looking at this really awesome and old Westinghouse OV-25. This is pretty much a perfect example of a streetlight from the 1960s that's been preserved pretty well. So I'm glad to have this in my collection, and it will certainly remain untouched as far as any of the internal components go. So it shall remain a wonderful example of a well-made, high-quality fixture. So with that said, I'd like to thank everyone for stopping by and watching this video. With that said, bye for now.